In South Carolina, in the early 1950s, the children who went to the Scotts Branch School had no way of knowing that their school and their story would one day have a place in the history books of their country.
What we'll do this morning is practice on handwriting. Has everybody got a pencil and paper? You need a pencil. All right. Here, you got a pencil. All right, you can start now. That's good.
Sorry, Red. Found the boy asleep. Figured I ought to bring him over here.
Harry Jr., you better hustle in there and get to work. Go on. The boys aren't keeping up around here, Harry.
Well, he walks in there 5 miles every morning, Red. And home every night. Every time he looks at those books of his, he falls sound asleep. Well, Mr. Carrigan finds I've been chauffeuring Harry around on his time and in his truck. I'll lose me a pretty sweet job.
Look up. Okay. And what's 3 times 8? What is the 4 called? That's right. That's right. That's right. Next one. 6 times 8. All right, put away your things and leave quietly.
I'm Reverend Delane. I'm principal at Scotts Branch School. Is Superintendent Springer in? May I see him?
Hey, get on in here, J.A. What is it, J.A.? Who's minding things over at Scotts Branch?
Mrs. Springer, we have a serious problem over at our place.
We got problems everywhere. Don't you know that? You know, education is hard work. Too much to teach, too little time.
My children have to walk to school. Some walk 5, 6 miles. Some have stopped coming at all. It's a bad situation, sir. We need a bus.
Running schools is expensive. Salaries, maintenance, insurance, books, heat, electricity. It costs a ton of money.
We just need one bus. You've got 30 buses for the white children.
Now, you know well as anybody, white people pay more taxes than colored people do.
Give us your oldest bus. We'll pay for the gas.
How can I make myself clear? Now, we just ain't got any money for buses for your nigger children.
We need to talk, Harry. This is Harold Bulwer. Mr. Bulwer is an attorney.
Come on in.
What we have here, Mr. Briggs, is a petition to the Clarendon County Board of Education. It says that you, being a father of Harry Briggs Jr., age 12, want school bus transportation to be furnished, maintained, and operated out of the public school district number 26 of Clarendon County for the said use of said child and other Negro school children similarly situated.
If they use tax money to give bus service to the white children, they have to give it to us, too.
The 14th Amendment to the Constitution states that each citizen is guaranteed equal protection under the law.
Will this go to court?
It could.
Harry.
Well, I don't guess I spent 3 years in the United States Navy to keep the world safe for Jim Crow. I sure hope this man knows his business.
What do you boys want? Hello, Mr. Springer. Won't you come in?
No, just stopping for a minute. What is this business, J.A.? Harry Briggs and that Negro lawyer are making a mess with this bus business. Some say you're in on it, too. Now, look, Delane, Briggs is suing me. And you and I work together. We're part of the same school system. Doesn't make sense for people to be in court causing a bunch of trouble we don't need.
What we need is a bus and some more money for our school.
Well, you're not going to get it in court. All you're going to get in court is a big dose of trouble you don't need. Delane, you better call these people off. I'm holding you responsible. Yeah?
I told you, it was I.C. Tully, the smartest son of a bitch in the southeastern United States. Maybe the whole damn country. Modesty does not allow, Randy.
It's just that some lawyers do not do their homework. And it's not that Tully is so good. So them niggers don't even know where they live.
It was cold in Korea today, with the mercury down to 9 degrees below zero. In the air, our Sabre jets destroyed one enemy MiG and damaged another.
We had no way of knowing that your place here was on the wrong side of the district line.
This is Ed Morrow.
You pay taxes in District 5. The school is in District 22. It turns out you lack legal standing in the court.
Well, I don't know much about the courts. But this business means everybody's making a fool of me, saying I don't even know where I live.
It's a technicality.
Well, my boy is still walking to school.
Mr. Briggs, I do some work with the Legal Defense Fund of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. I talked with the NAACP's top man in New York at headquarters, a lawyer. He's prepared to come here and meet with us. He's won cases in the South.
If we back off now, we'll never get anything. Let him sing. I'm Reverend DeLay, Thurgood Marshall. What happened to Harry Briggs happens everywhere we go. Putting one man out front is risky. They'll find a way to disqualify him or to scare him off. If there are 20 people here in Somerton who are willing to sign a complaint against the school board, we will bring a case here. What sort of case? Your county spends $179 a year for each white child and only $43 for each colored child. That's not equal, and that means it's against the law, pure and simple.
But Mr. Marshall, when I was a boy, there was no school at all. I just don't think it's a smart thing to put a sword to the white man's throat.
Most of us around here are tenant farmers. We work the white folks' land. We need money to get seed and fertilizer. We have to borrow from the banks.
We ain't trying to take anything away from these white folks. I just mean to get an education for that little black boy of mine. He's just as good as any other South Carolina boy.
I'll bet he's better than a lot of them. Our Reverend at our church back home used to say he liked to think that when the Lord created him, he did not do it on a Saturday when he was tired out and didn't have much to work with. He said he preferred to think the Lord created him early Monday morning when he had the best materials to work with and all the energy he needed. What our Reverend was saying is that we are equal to anyone on the face of the earth. And the Constitution of the United States says the same thing. 14th Amendment, no state shall deny any person the equal protection of the law. They added that amendment to give our folks a fair chance.
Mr. Marshall, the law doesn't mean much down here.
We just finished a case where they wouldn't admit a colored man into the law school at the University of Texas. The Supreme Court in Washington said
They had to let him in because there was no equal facility in Texas. And we all know what these doghouse schools mean to the future of our children. That's why the NAACP has started test cases in the courts in Kansas and Virginia. And we're willing to bring a case here in South Carolina, but we can't do it without you. If 20 tax-paying people sign up, we will come down here.
Mr. Marshall, what we need to know is what chance there is of it working.
There will be hostility and probably reprisals, but the law is on our side. This is what you people do when I'm out of town.
This is what we do when you're in town.
See, Bob Carter likes it around here when I'm away.
It's 7 o'clock, Thurgood. Sit in with us.
I'm in for an hour. We got to be back here at 8 in the morning. Greenberg, you're the one doing all the work around here.
Can't afford to be a civil rights lawyer and lose money playing poker with those guys.
What gives, Miss Alice?
All right there on your desk.
Phone. Call. Aces.
Aces.
3.
That's the rent money, man.
Tell you boys, it's real nice being back in New York City. Real nice.
Thurgood, South Carolina.
Yeah, 1 second. Sure. Feel them out. Thurgood Marshall.
Mr. Marshall, I wanted you to know I'm starting tonight. I'm going after those petitions.
Good luck, Reverend. Bob, we got to start digging out everything there is on South Carolina schools.
Schools or colleges?
Public schools. What county? Clarendon. Preacher down there is going to try to get enough signatures for a case.
Success in a couple of university graduate schools is one thing, Thurgood. When we go after public schools, we got to be sure it's the right time and the right place.
That preacher's got guts.
in my heart. I'm gonna let it shine. All in my heart. I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. All in my church. I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine.
J.C., can't something be done to settle these people down? Superintendent, can you tell me why your district is the only district in the entire state of South Carolina that has people running off to the NAACP in New York?
Like Mr. Tully says, Governor, we've got agitators. A few stubborn people who are just hunting to make trouble. Our colored schools are no different than any others in the state.
How do they compare with the white schools? How much would it cost to make the colored schools equal?
Most of the colored people are happy with what they got.
My question was, how much would it cost? Because I'm prepared to spend some money on schools, substantial money, to avoid a legal tangle. Superintendent, I would like you to get your house in order. J.C., I am determined to show that segregation and discrimination are not the same thing. I want those people to have what they're entitled to by law, equal schooling. I do not want the federal courts poking around South Carolina's classrooms.
The courts don't want to fool with public schools. No one wants that.
Not even your friend, Judge Waring? He's like a loose cannon on this kind of thing.
The loneliest man in town. Cut his ties with his first wife, took up with that Yankee girl out of New York. He needs friends.
I don't trust him.
By myself. We've gotten along good over the years, haven't we, Jay? I'm sorry to see this trouble all of a sudden. It's not doing anybody any good. People have been living and going to school in peace around here for a long time now. The way I see it is, you and me, we got to make sure that continues. Don't you agree, J.A.?
I'm a preacher, Mr. Springer. I believe in peace.
Yeah, I knew we could work things out. I may be able to get my hands on a bus for Scotts Branch. Keep your kids from getting to school all tired out.
This has gotten bigger than school buses.
I had a talk with the governor. We're going to do a lot around here to make things better. As soon as you call off these legal shenanigans, I'm going to recommend to the school board that you get a raise.
It's gone too far, Mr. Springer. We're not turning back.
How do, Mr. Carrigan? Anything wrong?
No. Just, I got me a boy to take over this place. Strong young fella. Someone I can count on, reliable.
You've been counting on me for 8 years now, Mr. Carrigan.
New boy will be here tomorrow.
66 signatures. This will make a strong case.
To ask for equal school facilities or to end segregation?
I thought we decided that. The NAACP policy says we're going to fight segregation head on.
It doesn't say when, and it sure doesn't say South Carolina. Separate but equal is the law of the land. When we demand equal, we're asking for what the law gives us. If we demand an end to segregation, we are challenging the laws of the United States.
You want to go one by one to every school district in the South? Trying to get the judges to force them to make the colored schools equal?
It's the beachhead strategy. Make them spend so much making their schools equal that they finally cave in and integrate.
You know how many segregated school districts there are in this country?
11,173.
Each case costs money, and even if we win every one of them, it'll take forever.
When we challenge segregation head on, we have to do it in the right place. Deep South is not the right place. And the white people down there are terrified at the idea of their little white girls going to school with little black boys. They're good. Let's wait for a border state. Wait till our Topeka case is ready. You got a chance in Kansas.
We always say we're going to fight segregation head on, and then we step back.
Sue for equal schools, and you're up against a little schoolboy. Sue to desegregate, and you're challenging the sovereign state of South Carolina.
Very good. If we challenge segregation head on, we challenge the state law. That would have to be heard by a 3-judge court.
Tough going.
We can't let Delane and his people down.
When we file our brief, do we backtrack, or do we challenge the principle of segregation?
We can go with a 2-string bow. Put the challenge to segregation in as a matter of principle, but focus the attack on the inequality of the Clarendon County school system. Make them live up to their precious separate but equal.
If we win this one, we'll only have 11,172 school districts left.
This is a special time of the year. And I have a surprise for you. Guess who's coming to town? Santa Claus. Here he comes.
One for you, and you, and you.
Here you go, Santa.
Here, Bob. You pass those out over there, okay?
Running.
Say, I'll get right to it. James Martin here is the new principal.
Where?
All right, here's Scott's Branch. And the school board felt it was time for a change. This will be your office, Martin. Reverend Delane will have it cleaned out for you tomorrow morning.
You may all go home early.
Hey, Reverend Delane, I made something for you.
It's handsome. You hurry on now. You have a long way to go.
Heading south, Mr. Marshall? Gladys Hampton, Mrs. Marshall, Detroit Advocate.
How do you do?
Clarendon County, right?
Just a little fishing trip.
Fishing for equal schools or something bigger? Mr. Marshall, a lot of us who support the NAACP hope you don't reach too far too fast.
We are going to be cautious, Miss Hampton.
Well, in that case, you can count on our support. Good night.
Tiptoeing.
I'm not tiptoeing.
The hell you're not.
Go fast, go slow. A lot of people are ready to cut me off at the knees if I don't do it their way. It's okay if I get dragged into the big war. I just can't be the cause of it.
Sometimes I wonder whether God meant you to be a lawyer or a politician.
Maybe he doesn't think there's that much of a difference.
We see no reason why these charges should not be dropped. The schools provided for the plaintiffs are fully adequate.
Mr. Marshall, you are prepared to present evidence that the school facilities for the plaintiffs are not equal to those afforded white students?
We are, Your Honor. Extensive evidence.
On page 17 of your brief, you raise a different question. The separate schools cause continuing deprivation and harm to Negro children and should be discontinued. Correct? The state constitution and laws of South Carolina are clear on that. Public education must be segregated by race. The statute says any person having 1/8 or more Negro ancestry shall attend colored schools. Correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
But if you ask to discontinue separate schools, you are challenging the legality of the South Carolina statute that separates education by race.
Our goal here is to get equal schools.
Mr. Marshall, your brief raises the constitutional issue of segregated schools, so it must be addressed. Court procedures prohibit a single judge from declaring a state law to be in conflict with the Constitution of the United States. For that, a 3-judge court is required.
If the court please. The Plessy v. Ferguson case, decided by the Supreme Court of the United States in 1896, established the principle of separate but equal. Since then, the right of the states to have laws separating the races has been upheld 7 times by the Supreme Court. Segregation is legal. There's no reason to cover that ground again.
Mr. Marshall, do you believe separation of schools is consistent with the Constitution of the United States?
I do not, sir. But for now, we simply wish to obtain relief for the children under the existing system. We are asking for equal schools.
You have already taken the position, Mr. Marshall. You climb up on that horse, you can't climb back down. I'll expect you to refile, bringing the issue of school segregation clearly before the 3-judge court.
Shooted boxes in, didn't he?
They put it in the brief.
he decided to hold our feet to the fire.
Sometimes history takes matters into its own hands.
In the Chinese language, the symbol for misfortune is the same as the symbol for opportunity. Let's make this our opportunity. How could we prove that segregation is unfair to our clients?
Harold, what would you do if a car runs into your client's car?
I try to prove damage to my client and his car.
How, Harold?
I put expert witnesses on, and they testify as to how much damage was done. Doctors, police, auto mechanics, whatever.
That's what we have to do here. Show that our clients are irreparably damaged by being forced to attend these doghouse schools. Their minds are what's damaged. It isn't easy to prove something we can't see.
Very good. Kenneth Clark.
Go to it.
Hello, Kenneth. Good to see you. Yeah, this is Thurgood Marshall. On board? What's the problem?
Maybe he doesn't like Charleston.
Let's pack it up, Dr. Clark, and get out of here.
Judge Waring.
All right, Professor Clark, you can go ahead with your experiments. The court order or no court order, you get your business finished in 2 days and get on out of Clarendon County. Yeah?
Hello, Vernon. Sit down. Show me a white doll.
This one.
Now show me a colored doll.
That one.
Show me the doll that you like best.
That one.
And which doll is most like you?
That one.
All right, Anne. Show me a white doll. Show me a colored doll. Show me the doll that has a nice color. Show me the doll that looks ugly.
Recruiting offices as American youth responded to President Truman's call for volunteers.
The total number of GIs in Korea will soon number 250,000. American boys doing their share in the struggle against the communist aggressor. Bloody fighting will continue in a conflict that will go far to determine if freedom will triumph over slavery. A new U.S. Army of Defense is adding up all the available power for the mighty job ahead. Unconcerned over criticism of recent terrorism, South Carolina Klansmen stage a rally in Harley County, Tobacco Land. Weapons are conspicuously displayed as the defiant Ku Klux Klan meets in the wake of reported shootings and whippings by their night riders. Grand Dragon Thomas Harding claims there are now 4 million Klan members pledged to uphold white supremacy. Across the state, at the Charleston Courthouse, lawyers for the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People have attacked the South Carolina law that segregates school children by race. A 3-judge federal court will hear the complaint filed by parents of the colored children at the Scotts Branch School. Quiet up there. District of South Carolina is now in session. Judge John J. Parker presiding with Judge Wadis Waring and Judge George Bell Timmerman. The plaintiffs call W.B. Springer.
You, Mr. Springer, are Clarendon's superintendent of schools.
I am.
It is true, is it not, that Negroes in Clarendon County attend one group of schools and people who are not Negroes attend other schools?
That is true.
Why is that true?
I couldn't answer that exactly. You'd have to ask the children why none of them ever asked me to go to one school or another.
Isn't it a fact that you do it because of the state law?
It's the law, separate but equal.
And you enforce the segregation law?
I do. I know nothing but the law.
Isn't it true that you spend 3 times as much on each white child's education as each Negro child?
We have 60-odd Negro schools and about a dozen white schools. And the rural white schools we spend less than in the city white schools.
Is it not true that you spend $179 on each white student and $43 on each Negro child?
If it pleases the court, I wish to make a statement.
What is it, Mr. Tully?
The defendants, the school board of Clarendon County, wish to concede that inequalities exist in the schools of this district. We have found this out from investigating authorities.
Mr. Tully, you can do that when you make your opening statement.
Your Honor, I thought if we were to concede this point, it would eliminate the need for lengthy testimony to prove inequality. When we discovered the inequality in Somerton's colored schools, Governor Burns proposed legislation for a state sales tax that would generate $75 million for school construction. Now, I have here architect's drawings of proposed additions and improvements to the Scotts Branch School. Now, we urge the court to allow the state reasonable time to...
Your Honor, What we see here is an attempt by the defense to prevent us from developing our case. For us to prove that South Carolina's segregation statutes are unconstitutional, we must be permitted to present evidence showing that our clients are damaged as a result of these laws. We have gone to great expense to bring expert witnesses here.
The state seems to be dealing with the problem. There's no need for us to be tied up here listening to experts.
Isn't there a larger question before us? Is the state segregation law constitutional?
No, I think we ought to hear this evidence. Mr. Marshall, you may continue with your witnesses.
I am a social psychologist and educator. I have degrees from Howard University and Columbia.
Is it true you conducted scientific measurements in Clarendon County to determine the effect of segregation on Negro school children?
Yes.
I can't hear the man.
Speak up, Mr. Clark.
Please describe, Dr. Clark, the results of your investigation.
When Negro children were asked to choose between the white dolls and the brown dolls, and to say which doll was the nice doll, 65% said the white doll was the nice doll. Every one of our tests shows an unmistakable preference for the white doll and a rejection of the brown doll. These children in Clarendon County, like other human beings who have been subjected to an obviously inferior status, have been irreparably harmed. The result is a confusion in the child's concept of his own self-esteem. This leads to a desire to resolve this basic conflict by withdrawing.
Do you believe this policy of segregation has any effect on the white children?
Yes. It causes moral confusion. The child who is part of the segregating group sees the same people who teach him democracy, brotherhood, love of his fellow man, also teach him to segregate and discriminate.
Your witness, Mr. Tully.
Dr. Clark, how many white children were in your classroom when you went to school?
None.
Has anyone ever described you as inferior? No more questions.
Legal segregation of education is the single strongest factor in causing harmful effects on the physical, emotional, and the financial status of the Negro child.
How does this happen, Dr. Critch?
The state harms an individual when it sets him apart because of the color of his skin. Legal segregation causes the Negro to feel that he is different and inferior to the white man.
Your testimony is that it can cause a false feeling of inferiority.
The sad thing is that the white man has reason for his prejudice. Our studies have shown that the Negro is inferior to the white man. We have seen
Doctor, are you saying there are biological differences between Negro people and white people?
No, sir. I know of no psychologist who would maintain that there is a fundamental biological difference. What I am saying is that the Negro can become inferior because of the practices of segregation and their consequences.
Are you saying that segregation can cause permanent damage to the individual?
I am, sir.
I have no further questions.
Professor Critch, you a native of the state of South Carolina?
No, sir.
You ever lived in one of the states that has legal segregation?
No, sir.
Has your legal name always been Critch?
No, sir.
And what was your name originally, sir?
Krzyzewski.
Were you born in the United States of America?
No, sir.
Where, in fact, were you born?
I was born in Poland.
No further questions. Mr. Crow,
position to which Governor Burns recently appointed you?
I am director of the South Carolina State Educational Finance Commission.
Your responsibility?
I'm in charge of the new program to make colored schools equal to white schools. We expect an appropriation of $75 million.
And what have you got for the schools in Clarendon County?
Sir, we've allocated $500,000 to Clarendon County alone.
Mr. Crow, when will these new facilities be ready for the children?
We hope some will be ready by the beginning of the next school year.
Your Honor, the 14th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States, an amendment ratified in 1868 by all the states, including South Carolina, guarantees rights in the present, not at some time in the future.
The court's familiar with the Constitution, Mr. Marshall.
Mr. Crow is talking about remedies that are in the future.
The court's action may depend on whether the state is making good faith efforts to improve the condition of these people. Well, Mr. Tully.
Do you think it would be a mistake to force children to attend racially mixed schools?
I don't think you could keep things peaceful.
So you believe that mixing the races make the situation worse?
In my opinion, it would cause chaos, lead to the elimination of public schools in most, if not all, the counties of the state.
Thank you.
Mr. Crow, Mr. Crow, this new state commission of yours, are there any Negroes on it?
No.
Are there any Negroes employed by your commission?
No, sir.
Mr. Crow, how much study have you done on the question of racial tension?
I have observed conditions and people in South Carolina all my life, but I haven't studied racial tensions as such.
Then how do you draw your conclusions as to what would happen if the schools are mixed?
Because I know what people say.
You are speaking of white people.
Mainly.
You say the public schools would be eliminated if integration were ordered.
They would be abandoned.
You believe that white people would abandon their schools if forced to integrate?
Yes.
You think white people would deprive their own children of an education?
I didn't say they'd do that.
You said they would abandon the schools. Maybe I misunderstood you.
I don't think the legislature would continue to appropriate money for public schools if segregation is eliminated.
Do you think you are qualified to testify as to what the legislature of South Carolina will do in the future?
I know what people say.
You know there has been peaceful integration in certain graduate schools elsewhere in the Deep South.
That's a different matter. Those were older people, and just a very few, I might add.
Indiana has outlawed segregation entirely.
The ratio between the races is very different in Indiana.
Suppose the ratio here was 95% white and 5% Negro. Would that cause you to change your opinion?
It would not.
Then the ratio of Negroes has nothing to do with it. Your opinion is based on the fact that you have all your life believed in the segregation of the races. That is the real basis of your opinion, isn't it?
That wouldn't be all.
Would that be part of it?
I suppose that would be part of it.
Thank you, sir, Mr. Crow.
Mr. Tully, you may make your final argument.
Your honors will remember that the very same Congress that passed the 14th Amendment in 1868 also passed the law that set up segregated schools in Washington, D.C. Now, since then, 17 state legislatures have passed laws requiring segregation in public schools. Now, this practice of separate but equal has been repeatedly upheld by the Supreme Court of the United States, most notably in a unanimous decision in 1927 by a court which included former President William Howard Taft as Chief Justice and such distinguished associates as Louis Brandeis and Oliver Wendell Holmes. It cannot be persuasively argued that these great American jurists, the Congress of the United States, and the 17 state legislatures were acting in ignorance of the Constitution or knowingly defying its meaning over so long a period. Segregation is legal in education, so long as it's equal.
Mr. Tully, you have come here and admitted the facilities are not equal. The law does call for equality, does it not? Isn't the surest way to achieve equality to admit the colored children to the superior white schools?
No, sir. The problems of race, if Your Honor pleases, will not be solved by force, but rather by the slow process of community experience and mutual goodwill. And any ruling by this court must take into account the fact that school facilities cannot be built overnight. All we're asking is time.
There is no factual dispute before this court. Negro schools are conceded to be unequal. What is at issue is the law. Yes. Separate but equal has been the law of the land for many years, but the Supreme Court has ended segregation in Southern graduate schools without any negative consequences. This is progressive development of the law. In South Carolina, all the state officials are white. All the school officials are white. This is not just segregation. This is exclusion from the group that runs everything. The Negro child is made to go to an inferior school. He is branded in his own mind as inferior, which sets up in his mind a roadblock that prevents him from ever feeling he is equal. You can teach such a child citizenship. You can teach such a child the Constitution. But he knows that for him it isn't true. Your Honor, we have shown that lasting damage is done the Negro children every day that Clarendon County operates its school system in violation of the law. The defense asks for time. Time for the slow process of community experience. I know of no statute that allows anyone to walk into court and ask for time to stop doing something which is unlawful. If the Negro children of Clarendon County are entitled to any rights as American citizens, they are entitled to those rights now, not at some time in the future. Now is the time for the court to act.
Have you decided?
Just a second.
I mean, about the school case.
I've decided one thing. Everybody around here does a lot of talking about the Negro problem. But what we have is a white problem.
How will the court rule?
Judge Parker's the one you're going to have to keep your eye on. He's a little cagey.
When separate schools are maintained for Negroes and whites, educational facilities and opportunities must be equal. The defendants have admitted that such facilities for colored pupils in school district number 22 are not equal. The plaintiffs are entitled to a mandatory injunction requiring equal facilities be afforded to colored children. The plaintiffs also ask that we order that Negroes be admitted to white schools. The court believes that one of the great virtues of our constitutional system is that it leaves to the states the solution of local problems. It is well settled by the Supreme Court that there is no denial of equal protection of the laws in segregating children if the children are given equal facilities. Therefore, an injunction to abolish segregation is denied.
Judge White? I had hoped that this court would take the view that there must be no suppression of the rights of any of our citizens because of their skins. And I had hoped that this court would have made a clear-cut declaration that the state of South Carolina should follow the meaning of the Constitution of the United States and not deny equal protection. But since the majority of this court feels otherwise, I dissent. The plaintiffs have shown courage in presenting this case in the face of the age-old pattern of the way of life practiced in South Carolina since and as a result of the institution of human slavery. It has been shown here that the humiliation to young children of being set aside has had an evil and warping effect which will remain with them forever. Despite the ruling of the majority of this court, segregation can never produce equality. It is an evil that must be eradicated.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall. Thank you, Mr. Carter. Goodbye, Harry.
Bye, sir.
I want to say goodbye to you. I want to say goodbye to you. And I want to say if you ever show your black ass in Clarendon County again, you're a dead man.
Stay on the sidewalk.
Keep him, Lord.
Stay behind the barricade.
You know, J.A., sometimes I get very weary trying to save the white man's soul. Thurgood, that court just told the people of the United States of America that segregation is legal. We got a whole damn mountain to climb. Did you see Dr. Levitt?
Yes.
Good. Did you get your sorted out?
It's a cancer. They have treatment. He's very good.
I'll stay home with you. Home with you is where I belong.
No.
Carter, Greenberg, and Hill, they can carry on.
Thurgood, I've thought about this. Since our first days at Howard Law School, they wouldn't even let you apply to the University of Maryland. One thing has been at the center of our lives. I want you to carry on with your work. Our work. I do not want to discuss it.
Mr. Davis' office, good morning. Yes? I see. I'll inquire as to Mr. Davis available. Just a moment. Mr. Davis, Governor Burns' secretary is calling long distance from South Carolina. The governor would like to come to New York to meet with you.
Tell the lady I would welcome seeing my old friend, the governor. Oh, and suggest to her that he escape the southern summer and join me on Long Island for the weekend. I see you've renewed your acquaintance with Julia.
Yes, and a handsome daughter you have, John. Your mother would be proud.
How about some iced tea? Or perhaps something a little stronger?
Well, iced tea would be fine.
When Jimmy and I were a couple of young boys in Congress in Washington, his preference for drinking was a little bolder.
30 years changes a man. For the collection, Julia. Your father's genius has made him an unpopular figure in certain high places in Washington.
Thank you, Jimmy. Always pleased to be perceived as a genius.
Mr. Chalmers Roberts says, seldom has a courtroom sat in such silent admiration for a lawyer at the bar.
The law. The law was on our side.
You were masterful. You pinned the government's ears back.
I'm still just a country lawyer at heart, a skilled technician. Lawyers don't do very much anyway. They don't build, they don't erect, they don't paint anything. All they do is lubricate the wheels of society.
John, I'm up here to ask your help on behalf of the South you love. The Clarendon County school case has become a problem.
The NAACP seems to be keeping you folks on your toes. Huh?
Well, I'm prepared to confess to past sins. Some of our schools are a disgrace. We're going to spend $75 million to bring those schools up to snuff. We will live up to the equal and separate but equal. But in order to integrate our schools coming down from Washington would cause chaos. You can't ask people to change overnight. Feelings run too deep. Case may go before the Supreme Court.
Well, surely the NAACP must know that the Supreme Court is not likely to give them the decision they want.
You have to be prepared. You've done great service at the bar for your country. Your talents may be required once more.
Jim, I've argued 138 cases in that court.
This case could be more important than any of the others, more important than any case of our generation. It challenges the right of the states to make their own laws. John, if this case goes to the Supreme Court, I'm going to need you.
Oh, my God.
Fire! Man, are you in the jungle? Get out, dog! The place is on fire!
Everybody get out. Come on. Come on.
Come on, hurry! Get out! Come on! Come on! Come on!
Go right to the pump. Get a bucket. Hurry, Joseph. Go on, go on. Come on, son. That's right. Go ahead. Go ahead. That's right. Run, boy, run. Come on. Come on. Run. Run. Hose down the roof. Come on, we'll help him with the hoses.
Real sorry, Reverend, but the district line is here. We don't have authority to cross over. You'll have to get the Scotch branch unit to come help.
I don't care about the Scotch branch line. My house is burning down. You've got to stop it.
Let's go, boy. Wife and children okay? Thank you. Bastards.
I'm sorry, man, but there's no more room.
Unexpected on Mr. Marshall's right.
There's a great deal to be said for separate Negro schools. Is this not better than making our boys and girls like doormats to be trampled and spit upon and called niggers? I say it's time we stop peering through white schoolhouse windows like orphans at Christmas Eve. Let us make our schools equal and excellent. The courts can be counted on to give us equal schools, but they cannot be counted on for desegregation.
You don't know that. The only way to find out is to ask the Supreme Court. Now, what troubles me is, what will they do when we ask them to either repudiate or reaffirm the Plessy decision and separate but equal?
That's what many of us have been saying all along. The NAACP should not be reaching for glory. If Mr. Marshall takes us to the Supreme Court at the wrong time, he is taking us over a cliff, provoking a negative ruling that could last another generation.
Wait a minute. Let me ask a question. Law students, how many of you went to segregated schools? Segregated colleges? Segregated law schools? Here we are, citizens of the United States of America. How can we continue to tolerate a segregated society? We must attack segregation head on.
Mr. Marshall, I know I speak for many of us. Let's not risk the setback that a negative Supreme Court ruling would represent. Let's push hard in the lower courts. We can win victories and gain more credibility for our cause. And we won't come up empty.
And I promise you success. Is that the question? Can I promise you victory? The answer is no. But do you want to continue dancing to the tunes of the Jimmy Burnses of the world? The NAACP has taken a decision to fight, to strike down segregation. And we will go where we said we will go. Let the Supreme Court decide.
You know the difference between doctors and lawyers? Doctors can vary their mistakes.
Good morning, Father.
Dearest Julia.
You're busy.
Oh, never too busy for you. Now tell me, to what do I owe this happy surprise?
I've been thinking. Father, I don't think that you should take the segregation case.
Why is that?
I think that times are changing. And times will have to change in the South, too.
Times are always changing, Julia.
If you take the case, it will appear that you are against the Negro.
I treasure this. To John W. Davis, from a grateful people, for his efforts in fighting the cause of human rights, from the Negroes of West Virginia and the nation. Sudden integration could turn out to be the worst thing for the cause of the Negro.
Even if true, that is not a very popular position.
Oh, nonsense, Julia. I defended giant corporations, and I defended Eugene V. Debs, socialist labor leader, charged with inciting a riot at a coal miners' strike in West Virginia. Alger Hiss, Bob Oppenheimer. Popular? In 50 years, I've never taken a case because it was popular or unpopular. I choose my cases based on the law. The law guides me.
What kind of law is this?
The framers of the Constitution understood correctly the greatest protection for human freedom was local autonomy, the government close to the people. This case challenges the right of the states to make and enforce their own laws. If segregation is to be outlawed, it must be done by an act of Congress or an amendment to the Constitution. I believe it's wrong for 9 men in Washington to tell a man in South Carolina who his daughter ought to sit next to in school. I'm going to take this case, Julia, and I'm going to win it.
Here, this will help you sleep. John W. Davis.
A lawyer's lawyer. In law school, I used to cut classes, take the bus over to the Supreme Court and watch him. He was the greatest Solicitor General we ever had. I used to sit there and say to myself, will I ever? And every time I'd have to answer, no, never.
Why
Why does a man of his stature take their side?
The man has lived with the law for 50 years. He must believe those fellows at the Supreme Court will see it his way.
Well, you know what I think? I think you're the best lawyer in America. And that Carter, Greenberg, and Hill are not far behind.
Well, we'll find out soon enough. Will Dr. Levitt let you travel?
I'll be there. He said 1 more week of treatments, then I can travel. Now press this and get the spots out. You got to get some new clothes. I want you to look like a great lawyer, too.
Hello?
Got your message. It's J. Delane.
Can you get to Washington? I've got a seat for you at the Supreme Court.
I shall be there.
Tickets, please.
Tomorrow here in Washington, the Supreme Court will hear arguments on Brown versus Board of Education. Lawsuits in which Negro plaintiffs from 4 states and the District of Columbia are challenging the legality of school segregation. John W. Davis and Thurgood Marshall has the opposing
Sponsors been terrific. We've already collected $12,000, and our people are still on the phone.
Please send it directly to our bank.
Expect even more money.
Thurgood greatly appreciate your help at a crucial time.
Some say that Felix Frankfurter is the key man on the court.
There are 9 key men. Peanut, why don't we get our new man to fill the gentleman in?
Bill Coleman clerked for Justice Frankfurter during the 1948 term. The first colored man ever chosen as clerk. He knows the justices. Bill, will you give the gentleman a sense of how the court stacks up? Chief Justice Vinson. He plays poker 2 nights a week with President Truman. Some say he's better at setting Major League batting averages than legal precedents. Vinson is a passive leader of a divided court. One result, less than half as many unanimous opinions this year as 10 years ago. Vinson relies heavily on legal precedents. He's reluctant to overturn established law. Tom Clark of Texas, conservative, votes with Vinson 90% of the time. His own state of Texas has 1,000 segregated schools. Justice Stanley Reed, Kentucky. In some ways, he's still a small-town Southern lawyer. Says he opposes discrimination against Negroes, but his solution could be equal schools, not desegregation. These 2 we can count on. William O. Douglas is the youngest member of the court, Hugo Black the oldest, the strongest defenders of individual liberties on the court. These 2 we have to work on, Jackson and Frankfurter. Robert Jackson was appointed to the court by Roosevelt in 1941. He's still upset that Truman passed him over when he made Vinson Chief Justice. Do you know what stare decisis means?
Yesterday's decision shall govern today's decision?
Exactly. Jackson believes that precedents are a force for stability. So, like a coral reef, the law becomes a structure of fossils. Felix Frankfurter, the finest intellect on the court. A Jew born in Europe. He knows discrimination. He used to say to us, how we feel is not important. It's the law that matters.
Is this Davis fellow as brilliant as his reputation?
They call him the lawyer's lawyer.
I burned your old one. Tomorrow morning, I want you looking every bit as good as Mr. John W. Davis.
Street and New York Avenue. Watch your step.
President in 1924. For you. Well, as things turned out, that vote didn't harm anyone. Everyone who says they voted for me actually did. I'd have been president. Good luck, Marshal.
Mrs. Marshall, I'm Julia Davis, Mr. Davis's daughter.
It's nice to meet you.
I have great respect for your husband.
Thank you.
All rise. The Honorable, the Chief Justice and the Associate Justices of the Supreme Court of the United States. Oyez, oyez, oyez. All persons having business before the Honorable, the Supreme Court of the United States are invited to draw near and give their attention, for the court is now sitting. God save the United States and this honorable court.
Case number 101, Harry Briggs Jr. et al. Against members of trustees of School District number 22, Clarendon County, South Carolina, et al.
Counsel are present.
Mr. Marshall.
Mr. Chief Justice. May it please the court, my colleagues will address the Kansas, Delaware, Virginia, and District of Columbia cases. I will speak on behalf of Harry Briggs Jr. and the Negro children of the town of Somerton, who have raised their attack on the validity of the South Carolina Code, which reads, "It shall be unlawful for pupils of one race to attend the schools provided for persons of another race." In the lower courts, we produced unchallenged experts who testified that segregation damages the personality of Negro children and destroys their self-respect. If Ralph Bunche, this nation's distinguished ambassador to the United Nations, were assigned to South Carolina, it would be the will of the people that his children go to a Jim Crow school. No matter how great anyone becomes, if he happens to be a Negro, his children are relegated to that school. Yet this court is being asked by the defense to uphold the segregation law of South Carolina.
Under our form of government, the only testing ground as to whether or not individual rights are violated by the majority is here in this, the Supreme Court of the United States. The court must weigh the rights of the Negro children against the public policy of the state of South Carolina. And if that policy violates those rights, then this court, reluctant or otherwise, is obliged to say that that policy has run up against the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, which guarantees all citizens equal treatment under the law. We therefore respectfully urge that the judgment of the district court be reversed and the children's rights be affirmed.
Is it fair to say that the South Carolina legislature set up segregated schools to avoid racial friction?
Yes, sir.
Doesn't the legislature have to weigh the advantage of maintaining law and order against what might be a disadvantage to the segregated group?
I think that the legislature should, Mr. Justice Reed, but I think we have to bear in mind that, as far as I know, in these states, there is not a single Negro legislator doing the weighing. The only point before this court is the law as it was applied in Clarendon County. All we are asking is that the state-imposed racial segregation be stopped and that the county school board be instructed to work out a solution.
What kind of a solution?
They could assign children to schools on any reasonable basis.
You mean we would have gerrymandering of school districts?
Not gerrymandering, Mr. Justice Frankfurter. The new district lines would simply have to be drawn on a natural basis without regard to race or color.
It would be important to me to have you spell out exactly what would happen if this court reverses and the case goes back to South Carolina.
What is important is that we get the principle established. Segregation by race is not legal. It is impossible right now to say precisely how it will work.
I think it's important to know before one starts out where he is going.
I would like to reserve the remainder of my time.
I was watching Chief Justice Vincent very carefully. His face. I don't like the expression in his eyes. How did we do?
I think we made a number of points very effectively.
Truth is, fellas, I wasn't very good.
Frankfurter is thorny. Hardly lets a man finish a sentence.
An experienced lawyer is prepared for that. I let myself get bogged down in detail. The one thing I wanted to do was find a way to talk about the principle, convince them that segregation is morally wrong, that there is no such thing as separate equality.
Says counsel for the plaintiff. We have the uncontradicted testimony of expert witnesses that segregation is hurtful to the children of both the colored and the white races. Now, there are experts, and there are experts. Let me read a sentence or two from W.E.B. Du Bois, the great Negro educator. I have seen wise and loving colored parents take infinite pains to force their little children into schools where the white children and white teachers despised and bullied the dark child. Now, such parents want their children to fight this thing out. But, dear God, at what a cost? Dr. Du Bois concludes, we shall do better by putting the children in schools where they are wanted than by thrusting them into hells where they are ridiculed and hated. Let me come now to what is the crux of this case. That is the meaning and interpretation of the 14th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States. Your Honors have said it is your duty, and I quote, to place ourselves as nearly as possible in the condition of the men who framed the instrument. Now, what was the condition of those who framed the instrument? I will tell you. The resolution proposing the 14th Amendment was proffered by Congress in June of 1866. 1 month later, the same Congress established separate schools for the races right here in the District of Columbia. And from that good day to this, Congress has not wavered in that policy. So clearly the Congress does not believe that the Constitution speaks against segregated schools.
What is your answer, Mr. Davis, to the suggestion that the Constitution is a living document? It must be interpreted in relation to the facts at the time it is interpreted.
My answer to that, Mr. Justice Douglas, is that changed conditions do not expand the language that the framers of the Constitution employed. And it is inconceivable that the Congress which passed the 14th Amendment would have forbidden the states to employ an educational plan which Congress itself was employing in the District of Columbia. No court, I respectfully submit, is justified in ignoring that. And over the years, this court has spoken in the most clear and unmistakable terms to the effect that segregation is not unlawful. In Plessy versus Ferguson, and in 6 subsequent cases, the doctrine of separate but equal has been upheld. So, Your Honors, I might ask, why should this be a matter of great national policy? Is it not a fact that the very strength and fiber of our federal system is local self-government? I respectfully submit there is no reason why this court or any other should reverse the findings of 90 years.
Masterful job. You did us proud. Thank you, Jim. How do you see it? 6-3, maybe 5-4. In the language of the famous general, we've got them. And they'll never get home.
Marshal, aren't all the presidents who have set waiting?
Well, Bob, I guess it's out of our hands.
The lives and hopes of so many millions rest in the hands of those 9 men. When do you think they'll come down with a decision?
Months, not weeks. I let myself get tangled up in their questions and caught in the underbrush. Davis. He makes it sound like pages of history.
Come on, Thurgood. It's Christmas.
What about this housing case?
We'll take care of things. Don't you worry.
These people are depending on us.
Buster needs you now.
Yeah.
All these years you've been tramping in and out of southern courthouses. Now is the time you can be with her.
Keep in touch.
Very good. Is she gonna be okay?
She's gotta be okay.
Seen Justice Frankfurter?
Yes, sir. Been here at least an hour. Came in at 7:30 sharp.
Mr. Justice Reed, Mr. Justice Jackson.
Good morning, Colonel.
Morning, sir. Here are the notes on the 14th Amendment for the Clarendon matter.
Yes, ma'am.
Have the brethren assembled? I saw Justices Reed and Jackson going up the hall. May I ask how it's going?
You may, but knowing as you do that the deliberations of the justices are privileged, you may not expect a reply. Stuck in the mud. No leadership.
The chief?
Good morning, Mr. Justice Clark, Mr. Justice Douglas, Mr. Justice Clark, Mr. Justice Reed, Mr. Justice Jackson.
It's very simple for me. The state cannot classify people by color for education.
I'm with Douglas. prepared to desegregate.
I see it differently from Black and Douglas. You have to look at the achievements of the Negro people, the remarkable progress that's been made since the deprivations of slavery till today. I believe that in time, the states, as this progress continues, will themselves lower the barrier. Meanwhile, the Plessy decision, with its separate but equal doctrine, is the law of the land. It has been for half a century. I see no compelling reason for overturning it now.
I agree with Reed. We were not appointed to this court to make the law. We're here to interpret it. I'm comfortable with the precedents before us. Doesn't stare decisis mean that the court doesn't change its mind just because some new justice has come along?
The colored children in South Carolina, Kansas, Delaware, Virginia, and the District of Columbia appealed to this court claiming that segregation denies them equal opportunity. Now, we can't wear blinders. The state segregation laws must be struck down.
I simply do not agree that the framers of the 14th Amendment intended to bar segregated schools. It doesn't say that. It says equal protection, and the schools are being equalized.
What about the Congress? It's their job to take this on and save us from becoming a 9-man school board for the entire country.
I am concerned over the effect on the country if this court should put forward a divided decision.
Felix, we have issued split decisions before, and the Republic has survived nicely.
Of course we have, but this is an explosive issue. Some governors have stated publicly that they would resist an order to desegregate. It would be a catastrophe if this court put forward a decision it can't enforce.
Perhaps Felix's warning should lead us in the direction of caution when it comes to overturning precedents which have been so continuously upheld by the court. We can move on to other matters and revisit the school cases at another time.
It just seems so clear-cut to me. Segregation is wrong, so the court votes to ban it. Bang.
Yes, Mark, a moral question. And a legal question. And what else?
Nothing else.
Wrong. It's also a political question.
The Supreme Court is above that. That's why justices have lifetime appointments.
That doesn't keep some justices, from being concerned about the political effect of what they do, including this justice. If we come down with a 5-4 decision to desegregate, or if we come down with a 6-3 decision to uphold separate but equal, there will be the majority opinion and 1, 2, or 3 dissenting opinions. Judges like to put their spoon in the pie. After 6 conferences, we are still split. A divided court will send a terribly confused signal to the country. It could have massive opposition whichever way the decision goes.
So, what happens?
You need a Kochlöffel.
What's a Kochlöffel?
A cooking spoon that stirs things up.
Now we should turn our attention to the school cases.
I do believe it is time to cut the cards and deal.
I know where I stand.
I've been thinking. The 14th Amendment is at the heart of this question. How can we be sure what the intent of the amendment is unless we know it was in the mind of the Congress that framed it in 1865 and the state legislatures that ratified it? Did they intend for it to forbid segregated schools? We are being asked to make what could be the most important judicial decision of this century, and we are doing it without all the facts. I propose that we ask counsel on both sides to come back and re-argue the case, focusing on this question. What evidence is there that the framers contemplated or did not contemplate that the 14th Amendment would abolish segregation in the public schools? With that information, we will be able to make a sound judgment.
Excellent, excellent.
Are you sure? Thanks.
Re-argument.
James Westinghoff.
$16.23. COD.
Greenberg, this man needs $16.23. We're good for it.
Very good. Professor Franklin?
John Ho? What are you doing? Going back to Howard, eh? Good. You know what else you're going to be doing? You're going to be working for me. I need the best historians and constitutional scholars. The Supreme Court wants to know what those white men were thinking 100 years ago when they passed the 14th Amendment. Be on the train tonight.
Very good. Bob Moon is coming in from Chicago. He knows the 1865 debates by heart.
We don't have money for train fare for these people.
Tell them we're good for it. Alice, telegrams to all our supporters. Tell them the Supreme Court has deferred judgment. We have to re-argue the case, and we need emergency funds. Tell them you know how to word it. We need money bad.
Very good. When the 14th Amendment was ratified, there were 37 states.
You're going to research all of them. Did you reach Henry Steele Commager?
Peanut talked to him.
He's not available at Oxford for the summer. He sent this message. I greatly fear your premise is wrong. The framers of the amendment did not, as far as we know, intend that it should be used to end segregation in public schools. I strongly urge you to consider dropping that particular argument because it weakens your case.
Bob, get to Horace Bond. He's the best scholar of political strategies of that time. Any of you guys know anybody who could give us money? Get to work on them. We've got bills, travel, offices, telephones. If they shut off our phones, we are out of business. And there are a lot of people who would like to see our doors slammed. I'm like General Patton. The best tanks money could buy, but no gas to run them on. Can I help you? I'm Black.
You're Black?
Charles Black from Austin, Texas.
What can we do for you?
I'm here to help. I'm a professor and a lawyer, and I can write a little. They said you needed help.
Yes. They called me about you. Find the professor some sit-down space. We could use all the help we can get.
You can report to the Honorable Governor, Mr. Tully, that I have assigned two of the brightest young men of our firm to lead the research. Mr. Strait from Harvard, Mr. McPherson from Yale. But they do work together harmoniously. Mr. Marshall seems to have fallen on hard times, soliciting our partners.
Send tax-deductible gift to NAACP Legal Defense Fund, New York. Thurgood Marshall. Well, maybe we should turn Mr. Strait and Mr. McPherson here loose on their tax-deductible status.
That's not our style. Their time will be better spent in the libraries.
The Attorney General of South Carolina has asked his counterparts in 37 of the states that concern us to research their state archives at no expense to us.
The research will show that the states were determined to retain the right to shape their schools to fit their particular region. Now, the Marshall people will be looking for something specific, something that shows that Congress intended for the 14th Amendment to prohibit separate schools. But they won't find it.
Buster?
Yes, honey.
Where have you been?
Errands?
What were you doing?
I had a whole bunch of errands.
Where's your watch?
I sold it.
You can't do that.
I did it.
We've got contributors. I won't take the money.
I'll mail it in.
Buster. they wouldn't let me into the law school at the University of Maryland. And my mother went downtown to the Crown pawn shop and sold her engagement band and her wedding ring to pay for me to go to law school at Howard.
So?
So? I don't want you selling your jewelry.
And what if your mother hadn't sold those rings? Where would you be now?
I just don't like it.
Very good. You once said to me that the fight for civil rights was worth a life. Remember? I can get along without a watch, but I can't get along without supper. And I want to know everything that's going on.
We've got the best professors and historians from all around the country. And thanks to Howard University and Charlie Houston, our lawyers are as good or better than the Ivy League boys. And I will have a second chance to argue this case. Like the old saying, I'm a man of peace, but I adore a riot.
Ming and I think the real key lies in the ex-Confederate states in the South. It was a condition of their rejoining the Union after the Civil War that they adopt the 14th Amendment. Congress insisted on it.
Not one of these states put a single word about school segregation in their new state constitution. Now, we believe that this proved that they understood that Jim Crow schools were outlawed by the 14th Amendment.
They had to toe the mark in order to get back into the Union.
Exactly. But some of those states turned around and put in segregated schools a year after the 14th Amendment was ratified.
And they've been operating segregated schools ever since. Professor Kelly, I'm not sure your argument holds water.
It sure doesn't.
Back to the books, boys. I'm sure if we give them a little more time, Mr. Kelly and Mr. Ming will come up with something more solid.
Professor Black, is it necessary for you to be negative so much of the time?
I'm not negative. I state facts.
I've been intending to ask you, out of all of the legal and academic opportunities before you, just why did you end up here at the Legal Defense Fund?
Well, I'll tell you. I come from deep, deep in Texas. So deep I can't even remember hearing the word Republican before I was 18 years old. But I had heard of this really terrible organization way up north called the NAACP. It was an awful place with a great big office all the way up there in New York, they said. And the worst thing of all about it was that right there in that office there was this room, a special secret room with no windows and no doors and walls about a foot thick. And the only way that you could get in was with a combination of this huge lock. And inside that room, they said there was nothing but hooks on the walls. Hundreds and hundreds of hooks. And you know what was hanging on each and every one of those hooks?
What?
Well, they said that on each of those hooks was a key to the bedroom of a Southern white woman. So I figured, that is an organization I want to get involved in.
The family spokesman said the cause of death was a massive heart attack suffered at approximately 3:15 this morning at his apartment in Washington. The Chief Justice was 63 years old. Turning to baseball, the Dodgers topped the Phillies 3-2 in 10 innings. The Giants shut out
Afternoon, sir. Mark? Was it a nice service?
Yes.
Was the president there?
Oh, yes.
Mark, this is the first solid piece of evidence I've ever had that there is a God in heaven.
My spies tell me Foster Dulles can have it, if he wants it.
Second choice, New York's own, Governor Tom Dewey.
Were I you, John, I should fire my spies. I have it on good authority, and by good authority I mean 15 feet from the Oval Office, that Ike made a deal at the Republican Convention. In return for delivering California, the first vacancy on the Supreme Court goes to California's governor.
I'm afraid you were right.
For once, Greenberg?
New Chief Justice is the same man who uprooted 80,000 Japanese Americans during the war, confiscated their property, and sent them to internment camps.
Who was it that a great man once said?
The devil you know.
Right. Boys, we've got to do what we've got to do. We've got to find something in the history that says we are right. Get Kelly, Ming, and the others on 18-hour shifts. We are not going to be sitting around worrying about who's sitting on the bench. Get back to it.
So far, nothing appears to pose a problem for our position. But Mr. Davis, if I may ask, how does Governor Warren going on the court affect things?
The Post describes him as the colorless manager of a team of all-stars.
I would think very little, Mr. Straight. Separate but equal has been upheld by the court 7 times. And the fact there is a division within the court should work to our advantage. There will be a great reluctance to overturn such an historic precedent on a close vote. Those men do not wish to create chaos.
Comes down to the fact that the man is a politician, not a jurist. He has never before sat on the bench, not even 5 minutes on a police court. No judicial philosophy.
I'll get you settled in, Mr. Chief Justice.
I'm going to need all the help I can get, I assure you. And your name?
Patterson, sir.
How do you do, Mr. Patterson?
Sir.
In California, I had 8,000 people working for me. This will be different.
We have studied the history. The Declaration of Independence had glowing language proclaiming that all men are created equal with the inalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But the authors of the Constitution included no such statement, a concession to the fact that our young republic tolerated human slavery. At the end of the 13th Amendment,